and welcome to Gate City Chronicles. I'm Kevin Avard with my host, Shannon from Cornerstone.
Correct.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Well, Cornerstone, you are what? What is Cornerstone all about?
Well, we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization here in New Hampshire, and our focus is to promote traditional values of the family here in New Hampshire, as well as limited government and free markets. And we do this through advocacy and education. And we believe that families are the cornerstone of society, and that it's important for them to be strong. And we want to do everything that we can to help them be strong, to have New Hampshire be a beacon of prosperity.
So, what is the inception? When did Cornerstone come about?
11 years ago. I was actually a founding board member at the time with Karen Testerman, and she served as executive director for 7 years. And then Kevin Smith took over from Litchfield as executive director. He was on the board at the time.
Now, both just recently ran for governor.
Yes, but I have no aspirations to do so, let me be clear.
So Karen ran for governor, Kevin Smith ran for governor.
Correct. So Kevin served as executive director for 3 years, and then we had Wendy Workalick as our executive director from January to July of this year, and her husband got a great opportunity out of state, and so they moved out of state. So I took over as the acting executive director back at the beginning of July, and gave up my position, resigned my position as the chairman of the board.
So over the last 11 years, has Cornerstone grown or?
Oh, I would definitely say that we've grown, for sure. We've grown in terms of a number of supporters, our email distribution list, our mailing list. I also think that we've definitely grown in terms of our ability to affect policy and a level of respect, too.
And now, are you part of a church?
No, we are not in any particular. Not any faith-based organization. No, we don't have any
just
affiliation.
Just concerned citizens about family values and about other political issues that are affecting families.
Correct. And so, we have supporters that are Jewish, Christian, across the gambit. So yeah, it's a big umbrella.
Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the agendas that you said. One of them, of course, is family values. Talk a little bit about that. Why? What about family values? What are we looking at over the last 11 years that you've seen changes, or do you feel that the family values have been under attack?
Well, I think we had a family first pledge that we put out that we asked for candidates to sign. And if you don't mind, I think it's great to refer to that, because I think it's a great summary of what we stand for and what each of those categories really mean. And so, for example, there were 5 different points in our Family First Pledge, and everything that we are doing right now is based around that Family First Pledge in terms of our agenda, the kind of candidates that we want to see elected. And so the first of the 5 points of the pledge are preserving religious freedom and the right of conscience for all citizens in New Hampshire.
Now, why would somebody have to sign a pledge for that?
Because there are some candidates that don't agree with these things, and we want them to come out, let the voters know how they stand on these issues that are of importance, and many voters, these are issues of critical importance.
Well, these are our core beliefs with our Constitution, though. This is our country. Why would somebody be struggling with signing that? I'm having a problem with that.
Well, one would think that would be inherently understood, that these are the things that we stand for, but if you look at any of the arguments that take place in the tension in Concord, or even in Washington, D.C., and all the capitals across the country, you see that there's definitely different beliefs in that and interpretations of the Constitution. And so we want to get out in front of that and be very clear and bold about what we believe in, and backing up those things that are in the Constitution and what our forefathers stood for and died for.
Not to be misunderstood, but to preserve religious freedom does not mean the government is endorsing any particular religion. It's saying you have a right of conscience.
Right. The Constitution didn't say a freedom from religion. The Bill of Rights, didn't say that we had freedom from religion. It was, freedom of religion, that you could practice it. And
without being hindered.
Correct.
Without the government coming and saying, you can't practice in this fashion.
Correct.
Period.
Right.
And that's part of our, okay, so
yeah.
I wanted to be clear on that. I said, I'm pretty much a big religious freedom nut anyway, so.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so.
Yeah.
So
then the second part of the pledge would be protecting innocent human life from conception until natural death. We feel very strongly about that. We believe that we can do better than abortion for women that find themselves in a crisis pregnancy, and so we want to promote those ideals and the sanctity of human life, because we believe that without the right to life, none of these other rights matter. They're irrelevant without the right to life. That's the first and foremost.
Now, personally, I caucus with a lot of the libertarians, and we have a lot of the same values, and this is one of the issues where I personally maybe coming in conflict with some of them, because I did sign that pledge, and I'm a person who believes strongly that life begins at conception. The difference is I believe that person at conception has a right to life and is afforded the rights of every part of our Constitution as somebody who's outside the womb. And I'm trying to defend that person. And I want the people who are on the other side to know that that's my mentality.
It's a human rights issue.
It is a human right. And that's why I think we need that dialogue also to come to an understanding, because right now our country is so divided on this issue. And it seems to be an issue that is very difficult to compromise on.
Right.
Because how do you compromise on life?
Well, there's all these gray lines. Well, maybe at 10 weeks, or maybe at 20 weeks, or maybe at 30 weeks. Or
we were forced recently to make a decision when life begins in the House. And it was probably one of my worst days in the House, because one of the other reps came up to me and said, listen, you need to come up with a yes vote for this, because we may not get another chance at this. So I don't know if it was 23 weeks or 23 days, or I don't even remember when life began according to the statute. But I was very disturbed by that, why we had to make a decision. I believe that it starts from conception.
Right, right. Well, we are planning to introduce a bill that's called the Heartbeat Bill that will get the conversation going about, that the heartbeat is found at 21 days, that there's a heartbeat there. And, if it's a blob of tissue, a blob doesn't have a heartbeat. It's a distinct heartbeat. It's not a frog. It's not a dog. It's a human. It's
not an unviable tissue mass.
That's right. Life is a continuum. We have all these different stages. We have embryo, we have fetus, we have, infant, we have toddler, we have, preschooler, we have teenager, we have, the list goes on, and an elderly person. It doesn't make them not human. It's just that they're at a different stage on the continuum of humanity. And so whenever we compromise, and question whether, where life actually begins on that continuum, it makes anyone vulnerable on that entire continuum of life. Right. That someone who has disabilities, someone who's terminally ill, where do we draw the line? Who decides who lives and who dies? We have to be consistent. Who plays God? Exactly. And then the third one is defending the natural family, which we believe is the traditional marriage, which we believe is the foundational building blocks of society. And so we will seek to defend that in public policy. And then voting to restore the natural rights of parents is the fourth part of our pledge.
Can you talk a little bit about that? What are the natural rights of parents?
Well, it would be to determine the best way to educate and to raise and to care for their children. That it's not the state that knows what's best. It's not the schools that know what's best. It's the parents that know what's best. And so we want to empower them to be able to do that very thing.
It doesn't take a village, you mean?
Yes, right. Not to say that sometimes I don't need my neighbors to come and narc on my kids for me, but no, it's not. The village is not the government. The village is your neighbors, your friends, your family whom you trust that you have decided to help. Raise them.
It was your choice.
That's right.
To bring them into your children's life, not the government.
That's right. Parents are the primary educators of their children, and if the parents choose to hire a school through their taxes to help raise them, or to help to educate them, then that's their choice to do so. But they are the primary educators. They're paying for them, and they can help to dictate what's being taught.
There's always the exception. Well, if you've seen what Sally does or John, how they treat their kids, they don't deserve those kids. They leave them alone. They're latchkey kids. They're out till 9, 10 o'clock at night. They're doing drugs. They're on this. They're doing that. They don't deserve it. And that's not the argument. That's what people bring that up, and because of this exception,
right?
we're going to
can't
take
make the
we're gonna-
rule.
we're going to
make
take
the
the
rule.
rights of everybody else away because of the irresponsibility of the minority.
Right. We can't lower the standard for the sake of those that are falling short. We
Right.
have to raise the bar. And if there's families that are if they are obviously physically hurting their children, they have given up their parental
Correct.
rights. That's a completely different ballgame, and
Right.
that's not what we're talking about here.
Right.
We're talking about the other issues I think that we can all agree upon, frankly, but the government doesn't seem to quite understand that sometimes. And then the last thing is enacting free market policies that empower New Hampshire families to achieve their highest potential, not being burdened by their taxes, through not. I have 4 boys, ages 6 to 16, and I was going for a walk yesterday, and I ran into a neighbor, and we were talking about the national debt and the burden on the children. And even my neighbor, who's an older gentleman, who his kids are grown and he doesn't have to worry about it. He had such a tender comment to me that as he was watching my boys riding their bikes, and he said, "I can't bear the thought of this debt being on their backs, whether it's the state's debt or the federal debt. We cannot spend money that we don't have, and it's immoral. It's a moral issue."
Who is selling out our kids with this debt?
The individuals who believe that we can keep spending money that we don't have, that they keep kicking the can and thinking, well, the next generation will take care of it.
Are
Somebody
entitlements
has to
part
be
of
the
this?
adult in the room and say no. As a parent, we say no to our kids. Do they want a new iPhone, an updated Yeah, they do. But that doesn't mean that we give it to them.
Right.
There are people that have needs in our communities, and it's our responsibility as Christians to help them, to help our neighbor. We're called to do that, not the government. But we're called as individuals to reach out through our churches, our social service agencies that we do. But what's happened is that people have bitterness to give to those nonprofits because they're being sucked dry by their taxes that are being yanked from them.
Right.
And so there's a little bitterness there. And so we need to give them the freedom to give to the organizations of choice to be able to help those in need, or perhaps themselves to directly help their neighbors that are in need. We are called to do that. But when the government does it, you don't have the human touch and that level of dignity there that needs to be in place to help raise them up. Welfare is not good enough for women and children. It's unacceptable.
It's a huge disaster.
It's a huge disaster. Right. And so they deserve better. And that's what Cornerstone is about, that we want to give them a leg up, to help them.
An opportunity to grow, an
That's
opportunity
right.
to achieve and build integrity, a character, and contribute back into society in the process.
Exactly.
And to pass that on to your children rather than to be on the dole for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
I was
It's just
listening
not
to
good
the
enough.
radio on my way here that 47% of the people, maybe 49% of America doesn't pay taxes.
Is that right? Wow. I don't know.
Federal
I'm
income tax. I just find that astounding. So when it gets over the 50 mark, then one set of people are going to enslave another set of people.
Yeah.
The rich, we're getting rid of the middle class in the process.
Right.
It's crazy. This is not good for America. And the deeper in debt we get, the more we pass down to our kids. I've often thought that the people that fought in the wars, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, all of them, they had a goal. It was to preserve liberty, to preserve our Constitution. That's why these guys and women jumped in and got into the mix. Afghanistan. I don't want to leave anybody
Lost
out.
their lives.
But what seems to be happening is they fought, and then all of a sudden they fought for what? To just make our children and our grandchildren and their great-grandchildren slaves to a $20 trillion, $23 trillion debt
Yeah.
that is going to have to be paid out to China?
To China. They're
Or-
fighting for China.
I don't think that's why they went to war.
No, that's not why they went to war. That's why we're engaged in this battle. Because, would I rather be on a beach somewhere with an umbrella drink in my hand reading a great book? Oh, absolutely, I would. But Kevin, I can't sit here on my hands and allow this country to go to you-know-where in a handbasket,
Right.
or my state, when I have my kids' future that I have to think about. And that's my job as a parent, to provide them the best opportunities that I can. And so that's why I get up every morning, so that I can be the mother that I need to be, the wife that I need to be, in order to raise a quality family that's going to have sons that are going to go out to be responsible, individuals that are going to give back to society, and then at the same time be involved in the culture to help change these attitudes that we have, because we're leaving them with a mess. And it's really a moral issue. It really has come down to that. And Cornerstone wasn't as involved in the fiscal issues early on, and as this debt situation has been brought to light, and it's become a real moral issue for us, that we could no longer just stay quiet in those areas, because it is a family issue.
So how do people get involved with Cornerstone?
Well, they can go check out our website at nhcornerstone.org, nhcornerstone.org, and there's information on there like our we actually did a voter guide for the primary. We'll be doing another one for the general election. And in that, that's one way that is a tool that's helpful for them to be involved, is to spread the word. Like Governor Sununu says, talk, talk, talk. And that's what we're asking people to do, is to go on to the website. And we don't have the general election voter guide up. We're still, putting in the data from last Tuesday's primary election. But that we want them to pass that on to their friends, forward our emails, sign up for our emails. We send an email usually every Monday and Friday. We try not to spam people. And we ask that they forward those out to their friends, print them off, tell people about it so that they know how to vote, for example. And then also we, telling people about these issues, talking up, these issues, helping perhaps get involved with your church, spreading the word within your church congregation. Consider being a faithful citizenship coordinator for your church to disseminate the information, to your faith community about how their candidates scored on the issues that we care about. So we actually developed what was, first of all, we had as a part of this election cycle, we developed the Family's First Pledge that I just talked about, those 5 points that we stand for, asked them to sign it, and then we also took 39 votes from the legislature from 2011, 2012's legislative sessions. We measured those according to our beliefs, whether or not they scored the right way or not. Then we did the same thing for the Senate, and we measured 20 votes, because it's not apples to apple comparison. We took 20 votes in the Senate and measured those, and then we broke them down into categories. We broke them down into fiscal issues, the life issue, and then the liberty issues. And I just forgot what the fourth one was. But we broke them down into 4 different categories. You can go and find that out. Yeah, exactly. So we broke them down into 4 categories and then provided the score for that. And it was very helpful for voters to go in and see, where they scored in those issues. And so it has a broad appeal because we broke it down into categories. So perhaps if someone didn't really care about fiscal issues and they wanted to focus on the life issue, that they could see what that score was. And then we provided an average, or vice versa. And then we provided an average of what that was. And we also adjusted the score based on excused absences too. So if there was an excused absence by the legislator, it was not held against them.
Right.
We did provide a raw score if they did want to look at that, because I think it's interesting to see, if you've got, a legislator who missed 19 of the 39 votes that we were scoring, well, that's something that maybe the voter might want to consider, in that case too. So, we provide that information for them, and then we took that information and made a voter guide combining, did they sign the pledge? And how did they score, a combined score of those 4 categories. And so voters were able to use that objective data to determine whether or not, who was worthy of their vote in the primary. And I'm very happy to say that we actually, there were, of the candidates that scored well, and the pledge signers, we actually 83% of our pledge signers actually made it through the primary, and the number would actually be a bit higher if it technically if it weren't for the fact that because of the redistricting there was some cannibalization that took place.
Sure.
So it actually would be a little bit higher than the 83%, and then
which is showing the mood of just average people, because that's all the candidates are. They're just average people.
Yeah.
Working for $100, trying to make a difference, and saying, I'm not going to take it anymore.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That's powerful that they're willing to take that time to do that. We're very, gracious, Republican or Democrat, that they're willing to serve for $100 a year. It's pretty remarkable. And then we had the Family's First Pledge. we had something that was called the Candidate Corner. So every Friday leading up to the general election for 7 weeks, we actually featured some candidates that scored very well and signed the pledge, and we wanted to highlight them to show the voters of that community that this is a real winner. They're to be honored and respected for voting so well as they did. So we actually had 100% of those candidates, the 24 candidates that we featured in our Candidate Corner, 100% of them made it through the primary. We're very proud to say. So,
do you find that these people are taking a stand? There's got to be some courage because they're getting some backlash from this.
Oh, no doubt.
It seems when you do take a stand on issues, whether pro or against, you're going to take the heat.
Yeah.
But there's some character, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, because I did okay on this test. But we're getting heat. We're getting heat from the opposition on this, and
that's a good sign.
That is.
If you're not getting any heat, then it shows that you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
If you're scoring 50, 60, 70%, you're not going to get any heat because you're wishy-washy.
Right.
And you know what? Jesus was nailed to a cross. Do we expect much less?
Right.
And it's going to be rough out there, and we have to just be prepared for it. It's the fact of life. If you're going to stand for something, then you're going to be persecuted for it.
Right.
So, I think of it as a badge of honor. Wear it proudly. And is it going to be tough sometimes and hurtful when it comes from friends or neighbors or even family members? Sometimes it's going to be tough, but, look at what the founding fathers did for our country. Look at those pastors that, stood up in their congregations. They stored weapons in the basement of their churches, the militia. That was who made up the militia. They were just average citizens.
Right.
We wouldn't have this country if it weren't for those individuals that sacrificed their lives to do that. And we look to them for inspiration, when we're kind of licking our wounds a little bit, look at what they did, and thank God they did, or else we wouldn't have the United States of America.
Right. I totally agree. Is there anything else that our viewers can know about Cornerstone that would make it helpful for them to get an understanding? You have the website. You gave the website.
We have the website, and then they can be looking out for the voter guides that are going to be coming out for the general election, where we'll be, once again, inviting the candidates, both Republican and Democrat, to sign the pledge. I think it's important to note here that there was not a single Democrat in the primary that signed our Family First pledge, not one Democrat. And on our voter scorecard, there was not a Democrat that scored any better than 40%. And although we try very hard to be nonpartisan, unfortunately, the way that the general court is made up in New Hampshire, they're putting us into a pretty tight position to try to remain bipartisan. And so I really invite the Democrats to join forces with us. These are basic, fundamental, constitutional issues like we talked about earlier. This is not a Republican thing. This is not, a Democratic thing. This is an American thing. This is a New Hampshire thing.
Right.
And we invite them to come on board with us and to vote on the issues that we care about, and that that they're willing to sign this pledge to stand for families and for the dignity of human life, et cetera. And and smaller government, because it is a moral issue. If we're always talking about, as Democrats, the little guy, that we want to give them a leg up, then we're not giving the little guys a leg up if they're carrying the burden of the debt on their backs, And so I really just want to challenge the Democrats to come forth and to join us in that. And so I really encourage, the voters and the viewers of the show to talk to their legislators, whether Democrat or Republican, and help to move that needle in this direction, to educate them, because I think for a lot of people, they don't know what they don't know. And I think it just takes some time to educate them. And there's certain issues that I've not always believed the way that I believe. When I was in college, I was idealistic, and but then it was over time when I educated myself, I came around, and I think a number of people would say the very same thing. Mm-hmm. They've not always believed what they believe. It was a matter of education.
It's a matter of time and growth and wisdom, which is acquired through tested means of and patience along the way,
and a little trial and error too. And so we encourage the folks to to go to our website, to get our emails, to talk to their friends. And then of course, as we move into the legislative session, we've announced our legislative agenda earlier this week, and we'll be working with legislators to find sponsors for those, and to move the ball forward, and hope that it will actually influence the narrative of the election cycle this fall, and that they be points of discussion for the candidates, and we encourage also, they can go to our website to see that list of the legislative priorities, but to encourage the voters to go to those candidates and to say, would you be willing to sponsor something like this? Would you help to be a co-sponsor and help move the ball forward on that particular piece of legislation? This pledge is to hold people accountable. This legislative agenda is to hold folks accountable.
I think that's probably one of the most important things that legislators need to have is accountability. And there needs to be a microscope on us, and because our government is not on so many different levels accountable to the people. We're the voice, the House and the Senate. We're the voice. If we're not going to stand up and be accountable, how the rest of the government that is inflicting the pain, if you will, whether it's taxes, whether it's rules, whether it's oppression, whether it's corruption, all these things are that much more removed, and the people need to have a voice. They need to have that accountability. And the only way to have that accountability is to hold your legislator accountable.
Right, right.
Did that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Talk to them. I mean, they're not some king on a throne that you can't approach. I mean, that's the beauty of our legislature. We're citizens legislature. They're very accessible. We see them at the grocery store. We see them at the post office. And so, call them up on the phone. And, some of the folks that are with other family policy councils from around the country, they don't understand that we call our legislators at home. They think that that's just crazy because it's a foreign concept. So we have 400 House members, and 24 in the Senate, roughly in the House. And that, we can call any of them. It's okay to do so. And so we just want voters to understand that that's totally acceptable and encouraged to do so.
As a legislator, I personally listen more to phone calls and would rather have a conversation than 20 pieces of hit mail.
Yeah.
That are saying the same thing. It doesn't make it. I want to talk. I want to have a conversation.
Right.
So,
no, that's great.
I want to let you know that I'm very glad that you came on the show, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We wish you the best, and we want people to know that how to get in contact with you. How is that again? It's a website?
Yep, nhcornerstone.org.
Are you on Facebook?
Yes, Cornerstone has a Facebook page. Yes, we invite them to like us on Facebook as well.
Like us on Facebook. Great.
That's right.
Wonderful.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, and thank you for watching Gate City Chronicles. We hope this is informative for you, and if you'd like to get involved, get in touch. And when you go to the polls, bring a friend. It's going to make a difference this year. Until next week, thank you.